and we will help amplify you. That's the rules. That's the context. That's the grounding. I am going to hand it over to the wonderful, legendary Dave, who has been a member of GW for many years and has become an absolute amazing support and advocate out there in Canada. And also, he works at Notion and he's a Notion super brain. So you're all going to be in really fantastic hands. Please ask lots of questions. We will be gathering them on a doc and we will have lots of time at the end for questions. So over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Millie. And thanks for that very overly generous introduction. Um, and thanks for having me on today. This is super exciting. I had such a fun time doing this last year. I think that this summer school is just a killer idea, and so many people get so much value out of this. I love doing anything with Generalist World. I'm a Generalist World super fan. I'm a very proud Generalist World member and have been for a couple years at least. And anything that you guys do, I'm into it. I just want to say that there are very few people out there that do community as well as GW does community worldwide. So anyone here watching, if you're not already a member, I think that it's just a hugely valuable community to be a part of. In the first week when I joined, I guess it was like early 2024 or something, I already got enough value to justify the ticket price. So everything since that time has been just gravy for me. Yeah, so very excited to be here. Today, I wanted to talk about how we can capture and channel all of the magic that we have as generalists with the very powerful and unique tool, which is our generalist brain, which is kind of different from other types of brains in a very good way, in many very good ways. And because I see Notion solutions everywhere I look, I'm a Notion person. I've been using Notion since I guess like 2019 or early 2020, and I run my entire life and all of my work in Notion. And I worked as a Notion consultant for some years before having the opportunity to actually join Notion. And now my work is pretty interesting. It's kind of meta consulting work where I am managing other Notion consultants, a program of other Notion consultants. So actually, you know what? I'm going to share my screen before we go any further. Let me know if everyone can see. Oh, good. Okay. So, little agenda for today. Um, I think maybe I have a lot to talk about here, so I'll try and blast through the initial stuff and get to the meat and potatoes as quickly as possible. Um, I'll start by giving you a little bit of my own background. I'll talk very quickly about what Notion is and why it's interesting. Then I'll talk about kind of the reason why I wanted to do this workshop, which is taking all of that power that we have in the generalist brain and channeling it, and then look at what makes systems functional for us and a few specific real world setups that we can use as generalists. And when we're talking about setups, I think maybe we'll do a little bit of just like live demo co-building all together, which I think can be fun. And then we'll wrap up by talking about why this all matters and how it can impact our creative process as generalists to kind of help us do the things, all of the various the huge multitude of things that we want to do as generalists. And then at the end, if there's time, we'll open up and we'll take some questions. So if you have questions throughout, then pop them in the chat, and Edge and Millie are going to capture them in a nifty little Notion database that will help us get through all of those questions. Cool? All right. So um, I work at Notion. I've worked at Notion for maybe like a year and a half, a little bit more. I'm a program ops manager on a team called the product adoption team. and it's kind of a really interesting team. It's pretty much all generalists. Everyone's wearing a lot of hats that all have to do with helping people to adopt the product and to become Notion people. And Notion is kind of an interesting tool in that it's not classic software, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But it really does require for us to have a product adoption team to help people figure out how to best use it in their lives and in their work. So I'm super excited about being on that team in general because it's a bunch of good people, but also because my role is a decidedly generalist role. I manage this program called Setup Sessions, which it's an offering from Notion where we give introductory consulting sessions with new users or relatively new users who are using Notion for work. It's by invitation only. And we have a whole team, a whole army of third party independent Notion consultants that are being matched with these users that we invite to give them these bespoke, totally customized onboarding sessions and consulting and coaching sessions. And it's such a human centric program in this world of everything automated, everything self-serve, and it's quite magical. And the results are super clear. Like when someone has this help, this one-on-one bespoke human to human help with one of these experts, then they really do figure out how to become an ocean person, how to use it in their work and in their lives, and they do adopt. And so it's kind of beautiful how the program performs. And so I'm just like really thrilled to be a part of it. What's interesting is that there are quite a few experts in my program. I have 160 of these third party experts that I'm managing. And for the last 9 months or so, I've been managing them alone. Well, I should say, alone with a team of custom Notion agents. And until very recently, a couple of weeks ago, when someone new joined my team and is going to be helping me manage this program. She's actually here today, listening in, which I'm happy about. And aside from my role at Notion, I'm also a Notion ambassador. A Notion ambassador, it's an official program as part of Notion for people who are out there advocating for Notion and doing community work and creating content and all that kind of stuff. So I was actually a Notion ambassador before I joined Notion, the Notion team. And I founded the Notion Toronto community, which today is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, local Notion community in the world. We have 2,800 members. We're doing events with 500 people in real life, and it's like super exciting stuff. I love doing community work. I think like one of my favorite hats is the community hat, and that's one of the reasons why I'm just such a big fan of GW. And yeah, I'm a card carrying generalist. My whole life I have been a generalist. I have that quintessentially generalist brain, and I never really knew the value of it until I came across Generalist World, and that kind of was a huge eye opener for me. And when I did that, I kind of got so excited about it that I've become an advocate for the generalist movement. And I try and support as much as possible the work that GW is doing to bring awareness and value around generalists in the world and in the workforce. Okay, so I think I'll try and gloss over this as quickly as possible because I think a lot of you are here because you already use Notion. But maybe just like a show of hands. I don't know if I can actually see a show of hands, but um, how many people here are brand new to Notion? Let's see in the chat. Oh, okay. Yes, we do have a show of hands. Perfect. Um, and how many people are familiar with Notion but just want to learn more? Okay. And how many people are seasoned Notion users? Okay. A bunch of seasoned Notion users. That's great. I think that means that maybe I won't go too into detail here and into the weeds of Notion's components and how exactly it works, but let's talk high level. So a lot of people who are new to Notion don't really understand what Notion actually is. And even people who've been using Notion for a long time have a hard time kind of defining it. Even people who work at Notion have sometimes have a hard time defining it. And that is because it can be so many different things to different people. And it's not a classic kind of software in that most software tools are opinionated and they're designed for a specific type of user and a specific use case. And Notion is not so much a tool like that in as much as it is a toolbox. It's like having a box of Lego blocks, and it's this workshop where you can put together your tools. You can build your tools in a bespoke fashion, which puts it in a totally different category of software tools, one that is on many levels arguably much more valuable than other opinionated tools that are designed for specific kind of use cases, but also a little bit harder to describe and harder for people to get their heads around at the beginning, which is one of the reasons why we even have a program like the Setup Sessions program that I manage. So I think a lot of people describe Notion as an all-in-one workspace app because it does so many different kinds of things. The way that it works is there are all these building blocks, these Lego blocks, and you kind of create the tooling for any given type of feature or system that you need. And because you can put together what so many other SaaS tools and software tools can do for you, then you can actually kind of centralize and amalgamate your operations, either personal or work related, and kind of reduce that tool sprawl that so many of us have. We've got like 100 different tools that we use on a day-to-day basis, and I think people who get into using Notion can reduce the number of tools they're using and kind of bring it all together, or a lot of it together under one roof, which is which is arguably a huge value because data, and we're going to talk a lot about data collection today, but when you're collecting your data and turning it into information and giving it context, it gains so much value just by virtue of the fact that it's all living in one environment and everything is kind of very close to everything else and relatable to everything else. So a lot of people also love Notion just because of how collaborative it is. It's truly designed to be a collaboration tool, and it's endlessly flexible. And so, because of the collaborative power and the flexibility, it's also very powerful. And we're going to talk a bunch about databases today, which is kind of like the core building block of how Notion works and what people use Notion for. With databases and given how flexible they are, you can do a lot, but you can also make your systems as simple as you'd like them to be. And that's kind of very important because I think that most systems, most software tools in general, have quite a bit of bloat, and you end up not using a lot of what's there. And there's so much value in paring down your tools to exactly what you need and not more. And I think that when you can do that, then you can increase your own personal usability value in your own systems. And beyond that, it's just a beautiful tool. It's painstakingly designed and crafted, and there's so much effort put into just making it a gorgeous and joyful experience to use. And when something is really nice to use, then you actually end up using it. And that's kind of the key for any kind of software or any system that if you're using it, then it can have value for you. And if you're not, then it's, It's just another thing for you to have that's taking up RAM, taking up space. And I think that with all of this said, and Notion's been around for quite a while now, but be, given that it's a place, it's a platform where people actually capture all of the data in their work and their lives, Notion kind of happened to be very well positioned as an AI tool. And so Notion introduced a whole bunch of things like agent and custom agents and workers and other AI tools that they just immediately had native access to everything that is in your own workspace and native capability to work with everything that you capture in your workspace. So very, very well positioned. On top of that, I think that a lot of people use Notion as a context layer for working with other AI tools and other systems. Can I just ask? It looks like I'm frozen. Can everyone see me? No, I'm just gonna restart my camera here and see. Okay, there you go. It's back. Okay, so um, all of this leads to this important thing that I say to everyone when I'm talking about Notion, which is your usage of the tool is more important than which tool you're actually using. Oh, someone's saying that it's frozen. Are we okay now?
We
We're
are
okay.
we're all good
All right,
now.
awesome. Uh, no matter what tools you're using, if you're using some cobbled together, duct taped together stack of a whole bunch of different tools, or you're using an all-in-one tool like Notion or anything else, if you're using it and you're religiously capturing your data into it and you're actually putting the things in your work and your life into that system, that's what gives it value. And if you're not, then it's a paperweight. So Notion just happens to be a tool that makes people want to use it, just because of how bespoke you can get with your systems. All right, let's talk a little bit about Notion's components, and then we'll kind of jump right into the good stuff. So Notion, everything, all the work that you do lives in your workspace, and another feature called Team Spaces, which is basically like a sub workspace for different teams. But that doesn't really matter if you're using it alone. And then the kind of core building block are databases. So databases they're like, let's say, glorified spreadsheets that are just very modular and very customizable. So I'll show you an example of a database. You can see it's rows and columns. Okay. And databases in Notion can be interconnected. So I have like a client database here. This is for like a service provider use case. You might have clients and then projects and then tasks. And what we can do is we can interconnect them using this thing called a relation, where you can see which projects relate to a given client in the client's database. And in the projects database, you can see which tasks relate to that project and which client that project is related to, and so on. So I'm showing this all to you on one kind of like summary page as an example, but usually different databases will live in different parts of your workspace. And so data can gain value by virtue of the fact that you can connect cross database, you can connect data and give it context value. Oops. All right. Okay. And then just to breeze through the rest of it, we've got Notion pages, which we're on right now. Everything in Notion is a page, even database entries are their own pages. And you can You can nest pages within other pages, which gives you a lot of flexibility. And then you have all kinds of different blocks. There are about 100 kind of blocks that you can put on any page in Notion. This is a block, for example. It's a toggle block. This is a bullet block. This is a page block. This is a heading to block. And you can put images and videos and embeds and databases and 100 other things. And so you can start getting really fancy about what you put where and how much data lives in any given place. A lot of the work that you do in Notion, you're doing by building things on your own, but you don't necessarily have to build everything on your own. Notion has about 50,000 prefab templates, most of which are free, and you can get them on the Notion marketplace. And there are templates for literally every use case you can possibly think of. In many cases, a lot of templates for that use case. So I'd encourage all of you as a great starting point. I call it like a gateway drug. Templates are just like a really good way to get your feet wet and to use systems that other people who have a lot of Notion experience and are maybe professional template creators or professional Notion consultants. They've created the templates, and so you can have like a lot of value right out of the gate. And then everything that you do in Notion, you can share. You can share with other people in your workspace, or you can share with other guests that are outside of your workspace. And you can give all different levels of permissions, even on a granular level. So you can give a given user permissions to only certain rows in a certain database, or you can give different levels of permission to different people in that database, for example. So that kind of makes all of this work that we're doing, it makes it very powerful because all of a sudden you can gain value from from collaborating and having control exactly on how you collaborate. All of this leads to the last while, the focus for Notion has been AI. And like I said, just very, very well positioned for the AI world that we're living in now. There are a bunch of AI tools that Notion has released. One is the Notion agent, which is essentially a chatbot that can kind of do anything you want for you within your Notion workspace, and also outside of your Notion workspace for search. And of course, you can pick your model. You have access to like all of the major models that are available on the market. And more recently, Notion introduced custom agents. Custom agents are extremely cool, super powerful. They're basically these always on custom AI agents that you can set to do anything in your workspace. It can do any kind of work for you. You don't even really need to interface with Notion on like a day-to-day basis in a very deep way if you have a bunch of agents that are doing a lot of your Notion work. And so the agents can do work on a schedule, they can do work according to triggers, and they can also do work outside of Notion through integrations and through MCP. So just a lot of super powerful stuff. And maybe at the end, if people want to ask specific questions about how certain Notion components work, then we'll give a little time to that. Cool. But in the interest of time, let's jump right into it. The reason why I wanted to do this chat today, this session, was because all of us have this generalist brain, right? It's quite different from other types of brains out there in the world. It's the reason why we're all part of this community, why we're sitting here on Generalist World's summer school, because we all kind of relate to this, right? We probably all have a generalist brain, and historically, having a generalist brain was viewed as a bug, right? Until very recently. And now in the world we're living in, where things are moving so fast and people require such a higher level of that magical dot connecting cross domain capability that now it's a feature. Now it's a feature that people are respecting, and it's a trait that people are looking for on job descriptions. And I'd say that it's even become a superpower. And so it's really cool that we're all sitting here together today. And um, a little while ago, I was writing an article. I guess it was a couple of years ago. Maybe I'm going to share this article with all of you after the fact because it was just so well received. It was about generalists' value in the world, and as part of that, I wrote this little. It's almost like an attempt at defining what generalists are, and very much like how there are so many definitions for what Notion is, there are so many definitions for what a generalist is. And I think that that's been one of the more interesting parts of the experience for me in GW is seeing the language that people use to describe what a generalist is and using that to help figure out how to better tell our stories as generalists. And so here's my take, okay? And maybe it'll I don't know, ring some bells for some people. So I think that generalists are adaptable, fast learning, problem solving, cross disciplinary, multi passionate people. We necessarily become mini experts in a multitude of areas, and we can effectively bridge between diverse functions, teams, disciplines, domains, industries, and challenges. And most importantly, we're positioned to provide unmatched value in today's workspace and in today's world in general. Cool. What it means to be a generalist. But there's a lot of value here, especially in today's world. And so, with all that value, there's this challenge, which is all of us have a lot going on. We're all interested in a lot of things. We all have a lot of different areas of expertise. And it's kind of hard to channel all that, right? It's a lot of creativity and it's a lot of magic, but it needs a home and it needs a way to actually be turned into action. And the solution for channeling all of that creativity and magic is to implement systems. And I think that implementing systems is kind of like the answer to a lot of things in our lives. But certainly it's the answer to channeling the generalist brain's power. But the important caveat is that systems are only valuable if you use them. So creating systems that you use is kind of the key and the secret to making this all come together. So I want to talk a little bit about the characteristics of building systems that work. Okay. Number one, systems that work are easy for you to use. So you end up actually wanting to use it or them. Great systems are generally bespoke and they serve your specific needs. Everyone has a different way of working, a different way of thinking, a different way of interacting and collaborating, a different way of creating and producing. And that's kind of like what gives us our value as humans, right? We're each so unique, but our systems that we use to help channel all of our capabilities have to have to fit the shape of the way that we work and the way that we think. So having bespoke systems is is just so important, and that's part of what makes using a very modular, very flexible tool like Notion really valuable. And like I said before, systems are just a vessel. If you're using a system that you've built for yourself and you're using it religiously, then it can be this well-oiled machine that is just buzzing and giving you tons of value all the time. And if you're not using it, it can just be a paperweight. Okay. And kind of philosophically, I always look at systems as coming down to whether you're capturing your stuff in your systems. Capture is the key to give value to systems. And so I'm talking about capturing your data and capturing your ideas and capturing your interactions and your collaboration, just making sure you have everything in your systems. And once you've captured your data, that's when you can start treating it and organizing it. And when it's treated and organized, then you can collaborate with it. And all of this leads to your capability to actually create and produce based on what you've captured in your systems. Okay. So I know I've been like kind of talking a lot on a high level, but I think it's pretty important to have the context of why we're even talking about this kind of stuff. And so let's look at some actual real setups. Okay. I think that some useful tools for generalists in Notion or even in other tools, it doesn't really matter, but we're going to talk about it within the context of Notion today. A learning hub. All of us as generalists are lifelong learners. We're all super ultra curious, and it's sometimes hard to organize and channel all of the different things that we're learning. We all have tons of interests and courses and like lectures and conferences, communities. Keeping all of that straight is sometimes challenging. So putting it all together in a database where you can organize it all is really, really valuable. Same with organizing all your hobbies or creative projects. I really love using Notion systems for capturing ideas, be it like a system for capturing business ideas or ideas for product features or even things like music lyrics. I think there are a lot of musicians and other types of creative folks in the GW community. Capturing ideas so that you can deal with them later is just such a huge value. A lot of folks in GW are creating content, and I think that using Notion for content planning also is just like a shoe in. And I love, I have been using Notion for a long time as kind of like a Rolodex or like a personal CRM. And I think that when you have all of your contacts organized in one centralized database or one system, then the moment that you need the value from one of those contacts, one of those relationships you've created, even if it was a while ago in the past, going back into your Rolodex and having it all together is like a saving grace. So let's actually build some stuff. Okay, where do we want to start? Does anyone have one that is most interesting? PRM. Okay, Serena, thank you. I'm going to create a database. Okay, database is one of the kinds of blocks in Notion. I'm going to do it inline right here on the page. And I'm going to call this our Rolodex. So we're going to want to add people that we meet, right? Let's say it's people we meet in the GW community or people we meet at a conference or at a talk or in the coffee shop, whatever. So we're going to capture their name. What else might we want to capture? Maybe the date that we met the person for the first time. So I'm going to add a date property. And just for context, for those of you who don't know, properties are just columns in a Notion database, except they're all prefab types of formats. And so we can have a text type property, we can have number type, we can have tags or multi tags, we can have statuses, dates, different people in our workspace, attachments, and the list goes on. And then there are some more powerful types of properties like relations and formulas, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Cool. So we'll add a date property. So for example, let's say I met Millie and I met her on whatever it was last Tuesday. Cool. Uh, what else might we want to capture about this this new relationship, this person that I met that I might want to interact with over time? maybe maybe like a tag, and we can say, I don't know, categories. And then in categories, we can say like professional maybe is one tag, community is another tag. Mm, I don't know. Let's say Europe is another tag. And so all of this data that we're capturing, we can use later on to actually treat and organize all of the entries that we capture in this Rolodex. But we don't need to worry about that yet. We'll talk about that in a minute. What are some other things we might want to capture? Maybe like an email address. How about a LinkedIn URL, LinkedIn profile? Okay. And then just for kicks, one more. What's a good one? Maybe, you know what? That's enough. I was going to put a status, but I think we'll do a status in one of the other ones. Okay. So, um, Millie Generalist, the world. Perfect. And then because these properties are prefab with their formatting, then it automatically is clickable and the date has a date selector. And whenever you put something in here, then it becomes like a hyperlinked URL. Okay, so let's put some more people in. We've got Eche and we've got um, who else is on the call here? We've got Annika, we've got Will, we've got AJ. Okay, that's enough for now. So um, let's say each of these people, so these are the same as Millie, but Annika was, let's say, personal. And um, I don't know, South America. Okay. And then Will is community and Asia. And AJ is also South America professional. Okay. So we're starting to give a little bit of data here. Let's just choose some dates so that I can show you a little bit about how we can start treating the data. Okay. Um, and we'll just pretend like everyone has the same email address and same LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn.com, oops, slash profile. Okay. Now what we can do is we can give this data different outfits. Okay. So right now we're in a table view. A table view is basically like a spreadsheet view with the columns and the rows, but we can view this very same data in different ways in order to gain different context from it. So let's view this data and actually, you know what? Yeah, let's give it let's say a board view or what else is interesting? You know what? Let's give it a gallery view. And I'm going to add one more uh, property, or actually, you know what? I'm not even. I'm going to add a cover image for each of these people, and we're going to pretend like it's their photo. Okay, it's just taking randomly generated images, and I'm going to add a gallery view of this same database. I'm going to call it gallery, and then I'm going to use the page cover as the preview. And all of a sudden, we have the same data, the same people, but we can see them in a different way. And if I want to click on Edge, then I have the page that opens up. and it has all of her information. And I can start compiling a whole bunch of notes and data in the page body. Okay. And I can even display some more of the properties that I've captured. So let's look at their tags and the date and the email and LinkedIn. Cool. So gallery, I like that. I can do the same thing on a timeline or on a map if I want to capture where I met the person or where the person is from in another property or in a board. Actually, let's do a board view for the next thing that we build. Okay. So let's skip past the Rolodex now. And what's what's another one that we should build? What's the next one? Maybe like let's do the Learning Hub. Okay. So I'm going to build another one. We'll call it the Learning Hub. And here, I think maybe we can structure this by like what the resource is, and then we'll capture um, maybe like a select property to say whether this is online resource or maybe like a community resource or maybe like a book or a course like that so that we can give it a category or let's say a type. Okay. And then maybe like an attachment if we want to attach the resource or alternatively a URL if we want to link directly to the resource. And then let's say, let's give it a status. Okay. And we'll say, as you can see, status has like these prefab status options. But because it's so endlessly flexible, we can edit those statuses. So let's say the default will be to look into, and then maybe in progress is fine, and then completed. Okay. Or even, let's add one more. Let's say ongoing, evergreen. So now we can use this as a place to actually capture all the resources that we come across on a day-to-day basis. So let's say generalist world, and generalist world is a community, and generalist.world is the URL, and this is ongoing evergreen and lifetime. Okay. Any suggestions on some more resources? Let's let's get people in the chat just so that um, I don't have to think about some more samples. Notion Academy. Okay, amazing. Thank you. Notion Academy is online, and then LinkedIn, I guess, is a resource. Sure. Ah, nice. Okay, so this is good. Different specific people. So who was that? Ruben Hasid, Dave Burse. Okay. And then let's see a book. Okay. Austin Keon, show your work. That's exactly what we're doing. We're showing the work right now. Okay, I think that's enough here. So let's give each one of these. This one's a book, a type. This is, let's say, uh, thought leader is the category. Okay. LinkedIn is online. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to give each one of these a status. So LinkedIn is ongoing evergreen. This one is, um, do we have a course here? We don't have a course. Let's pretend like this one's a course. Okay. And we're going to say that this one's completed. And in fact, I'm just going to get fancy and I'm going to change these colors. Okay. Um, Dave Burse is, let's say, in progress. I'm looking into it. Austin Keon also in progress. All right. So we've captured a little bit of information about the various things that we're learning here. Let's give it a different outfit. Let's look at this in a board view. And so a board view, many of you know it as a Kanban board or like a pipeline. And the idea is that you're just taking all of the entries in the database and you're displaying them according to their status, or you can change it and display it according to something else or a different status property, for example. But in this case, we only have one. So, and then you have this very clear indication of where everything stands in terms of status. And you can even, as you work through things, you can just drag them from one status to the other. And the status value that's associated with that particular entry will change as soon as you drag it over. It's just like a really easy, low friction way to interact with the data. So we have all the very, this is really important. It's all the very same entries as we have in our table view. It's the same data, but we're just looking at it in a different format. And so we can look at it in all of these various different formats, and each format might give us different context value. The other thing we can do is we can start maybe doing sorting. We can sort, let's sort this one, our Rolodex. Let's sort it by date. And we'll do by date descending. Now it's a little bit more organized. Okay. And let's sort our learning hub, or actually, let's not, let's filter our learning hub and let's only look at the statuses that are not complete because maybe we don't want to see the completed ones anymore. How about this? Let's actually duplicate this same table view, but we'll say this view will be in process. And so we will filter this by status, and we'll only look at the things that are not completed. Okay. Or actually, not completed and evergreen, but we're going to filter out completed. So now we have
AJ,
this cleaned up view. Yes.
while I'm just wondering, because we have like a few, we're running kind of tight on time, and I'm wondering if can I frame some of the questions while you're doing this demo? I wonder if it will be
Yeah,
helpful for
absolutely.
folks.
I haven't been watching
Would
the
that
chat.
work?
Yeah,
No, no, you're good. Just because I think like it will make sense if you could answer whilst you're kind of in action.
absolutely. Yeah, if anyone wants
Okay,
to jump on and just like speak on the mic, that's fine too.
cool.
Or I don't know if
Yeah.
you prefer Millie.
Let's try get through some of these because there's a few, and then if we have time, let's absolutely open it up for folks.
Sure.
So one of the questions was, yeah, this is a really great one. How do you think about databases so that they interconnect in a way that's helpful? I feel like I'm missing a link to truly benefit from the power of databases, and I feel like you've got these two here. What do we do? How do we make those two speak to each other?
Very good. So, it's an excellent question. That's kind of like the culmination of this part of the talk, which is adding what is called a relation property. This is like the power property here. And if I add this relation, it's basically a link. It's a bridge to any other database in my Notion workspace. And so I'm going to link it to the Learning Hub. I'm going to make it a two-way relation. And all of a sudden, we have this new property in both of these databases. And I can say that Millie is related to Generalist World. So let's make that link. And I can see on the other side that Generalist World is related to Millie. And let's say AJ is related to the Notion Academy, same thing. So as
Mhm.
soon as we start compiling or like populating the connections between entries in one database and the other, then we can get fancy and we can start adding views that are only displaying, let's say, the people in my Rolodex that are related to a given learning resource or a given project or specific content if we're talking about a content planner or maybe business ideas for to do with a particular person. So that's where things start to really open up. The first, let's talk about this in sequence, and then I'm gonna just blast past this because there's some important stuff I want to finish up in the last few minutes. And I knew that I probably wouldn't have enough time because there's just so much to talk about. But the sequence looks like this: it's capturing, and then treating and organizing, and then interconnecting to give everything context and value. And then once you have all of that in place, that's when you can actually use it to be creating and producing. Okay. So instead of doing more building, um, maybe what I'm gonna do is just jump ahead. Okay. Actually, before I jump too far ahead, I just wanted to mention that I also have some other templates that I've built in the past that are very useful for generalists. There was a job hunt management tool with 5 interconnected databases, which I'll link to all of you afterwards. I actually did a talk for GW in the past about it. I have another one, which is a place where you can collect your body of work, all of your creative projects. And then a really interesting one where you can put in your current snapshot of your financial situation and calculate automatically how much runway you have going into the future to decide whether you can take a career sabbatical or maybe leave your job, maybe start a business. Runway is a pretty important metric to understand when you're talking about career changes, especially. All right. So I'm going to try and do this like really fast, but all of this, I wanted to talk about all of this today because the human creative process is not exactly aligned with how software and tools work in our world, right? The human creative process is nonlinear. You you can't really just plan to be creative when you sit down and want to do the thing that you're working on. You can't plan creativity, right? It happens when inspiration strikes. Maybe it's when you're on the toilet, maybe it's when you're in the shower or in a concert or in a conference or right before you fall asleep at night or whatever. And capturing at that moment that inspiration does strike is kind of a key to making sure that all the rest of the stuff I've talked about, where you're treating and you're organizing and you're giving context, none of that really matters if you haven't captured everything. And so I came up with this concept. I guess it's a framework with a working title. I've been calling it the database moment. And a database moment is that moment at which all of your unstructured capture of ideas or data around a particular topic are collected. It's that moment at which it has enough critical mass that all of that captured data deserves to be organized, deserves to have metadata, deserves to be treated and given deeper context. And so I wanted to. Are we okay for time? Can we go over a few minutes?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
And if
cool.
anyone needs to jump, feel free. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm good to stay for a bit.
Very cool. Okay, so here's a little example flow. All right. Let's say I am planning to have a YouTube channel, or let's say I already have a YouTube channel and I'm capturing all of my ideas for YouTube videos. So here's a list. It's this very simplistic bullet list that I've just been capturing ad hoc in the moment that inspiration strikes, and I'm just throwing it onto this page. That really is the creative process, right? And so at some point, there are enough ideas here where I'm like, maybe I'm going to start recording, but I need to organize all of this. Which one am I going to do first? I need to write maybe outlines or scripts, create thumbnails, do some research, maybe have guests, whatever it may be. And so I'm capturing it all here in an extremely organic and unstructured and nonlinear way. And there's no particular order to it, right? I'm even capturing maybe some additional notes about a given idea. In this case, there's a video about this very database moment framework. And then what I can do is I can take all of this and I can just turn it into a database. That's like one of the magical things for me in Notion. So I am going to make a database right here in line. I'm going to call it YouTube video ideas. And I'm literally going to highlight and drag all of these things right into the database. And then boom, these are now database items. They're pages in this database, and I can start giving them metadata and I can start organizing them and treating them. So I don't know, let's say we'll give it a status and we'll give it like maybe some tags and whatever else. And really importantly, if I had notes, further notes on any one of them, like the toggle one that I showed you, they just automatically get captured in the page of that item. And so what I love about this concept is that it just makes me feel free to just capture, capture, capture. I don't have to worry about organizing things in the moment and breaking the creative process and breaking the flow. And so, sorry, I keep going out of my little presentation. One of the really nice ways that I like to capture is using iOS shortcuts on my phone. So just so I wouldn't have to live demo this, I recorded my phone screen to show you an example of what that might look like in an iOS shortcut. So I literally tap the shortcut. I'm just going to put in my idea. I'm going to type a bunch of the really fresh, in the moment thoughts that I have about the thing and just hit done. And then it's captured in my Notion database. And that has been just like such an unlock for me. And it allows me while I'm driving, while I'm in a meeting, while I'm on the toilet, wherever, it allows me to just like take that lightning and just bottle it so that when I need it in the future, when I'm sitting down to actually plan out my YouTube videos, then then it's there. I've got it, right? I've done the most important part of the process, which is the capture, and all the rest of it flows from there. Okay, there are other good ways to make capture really quick and easy for you also. You can use custom agents, custom Notion agents with integrations with other tools. You might do like an integration on a custom agent with Slack, and then you can just like pop a message into a given Slack channel or tag Slack bot, and then it'll just capture it from Slack into your Notion database where you have your YouTube video ideas. Or you can connect Notion via MCP to any of your other tools that you use, and you can capture from wherever you want, really. Okay, so all of this is kind of to say that if you can organize it, then you can act on it. I thought of this. This was yesterday. It's kind of like an alternative or a counterpart to that saying, which is like I think it's if you can measure it, you can improve it. Right? This is the Notion capture counterpart. If you can organize it, then you can act on it, and that's kind of like what the underlying idea that I wanted to communicate to all of you today is that our generalist brains, there's so much going on. And very often it's in a lot of different domains, right? So if we can find just a really effective way to capture and channel all of this, then we can do so much with it. Like our brains are buzzing with value. And anything that we don't capture and then that we don't organize is kind of lost into the ether, and we're not going to be able to enjoy whatever those ideas or those learnings may give us down the line. Cool. maybe afterwards I'm gonna send a little resource page out through Million and Edge. And if anyone has any questions, now's the time. Thanks for the extra few minutes. Um, I think that I probably could have spent a bunch more time building, and maybe another day we'll do that. But for now, if anyone has any questions, then I'm going to open the floor.
You're a legend, Dave, and it's just so inspiring to see someone so passionate about the work that they get to do. So thank you for also extending. I'm wondering with the questions, because there are a few, maybe we could do it async. So we're going to send a
Sure.
follow-up email and we can share those questions and the answers. So just to kind of respect everyone's time. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm on it.
All right, so you're all going to get a chunky follow-up email. Look forward to that. Edger has also created a little LinkedIn post. We're starting a fun wee tradition where we go and comment. You can comment one of your takeaways, one of your questions. You can just say hi. And the invitation is to then go and connect with someone in those comments so that we all get to learn together on these sessions, but then the connections actually happen post-session. So Edger will drop that in the chat and make sure you connect with Dave, DM him all your questions because he is clearly so knowledgeable about this. And I look forward to seeing you at the next sessions. Thanks,
Thank you so much for
everyone.
having me again. And thanks everyone
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Dave. Appreciate you. Bye.